If you don't want to pay for a mooring, but you do want to stay roughly in one location, whether that's because of work or you've got kids at school or for whatever reason, family reasons, you are pretty much on a bit of a sticky wicket, because if you have a mooring, you can leave the boat there as long as you like. If you don't have a mooring, you have to move the boat every 14 days. But here's where it gets tricky, because you might think, well, I'll go from here, and then in 14 days I'll go to here, and then 14 days later I'll go back to here. So you go from A to B and B to A. Or you might think I'll do A, B, C, B, A, and so on. But, and I'm going to gloss over this because it's complicated, the law states that if you are a continuous cruiser, you must be what they call bona fide navigating the canals. In other words, navigating in good faith. And this is where the big bone of contention comes in between boaters, who want to stay roughly in one spot, and the Canal and River Trust, who are tasked with upholding the law. Since it only says bona fide navigating, and none of that is actually defined in the law, the question is, well, what is bona fide navigating? And the Canal and River Trust say, well, going from A to B to C to B to A and back again is not bona fide navigating. And then the boaters will say, well, how far must I go every year, for example, to be navigating but not seem to be trying to get round the system? And there's no answer in law, so the Canal and River Trust have had to make it up. And they've said, well, I think the guidance at the moment is about 20 miles, but I've also heard people saying recently they've upped it to 30 miles. But there is no legal statutory definition of what constitutes bona fide cruising. Now, at one extreme, you can say, well, any form of staying in the same spot is not bona fide navigating. And at the other, you can say, well, if you're going all the way around Birmingham, for example, which you can do in a big loop, well, clearly that is bona fide navigating. It's a massive old loop and you want to be in the Midlands, so you say. It's a tricky one, and there are vicious arguments on both sides. The CRT will say they're trying to move people on so that people don't cluster around a single spot and hog that bit of the canal. And then the boaters will say, I'm trying to live calmly and peacefully on board my boat and I move it every few days, so what's the problem? This is a massive issue in London where there are just so many boats. It's a massive issue down on the Kennet and Avon where there are lots of boats. But even on the rest of the network, if you declare as a continuous cruiser, you can expect the Canal and River Trust to want to know where you are and where you've been, and they do have note takers who will come along and note down what boats, and they note down the serial number, are moored at what spots and for how long. And if they think your pattern of movement doesn't match a continuous cruiser, well, then you enter this massive legal shenanigans with them. You can get away with not having a mooring and not paying a mooring fee if you want to be a continuous cruiser, but you'll have a whole set of other issues to worry about maintaining true continuous cruiser status. And that is really what I wanted to get to on that front.